mode.
Good morning and welcome to Dynamic Blocks Use and Creation. My name's Stan Henney. I'm the Business Development Manager here at CAD-1, and I have Michael Calkins, one of our registered architects and AutoCAD certified instructor and technical specialist. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We want to welcome you and wish you the best here. Thank you.
We've got our little startup slide here. Seems like we got a little bit of a lag going on here. Do I need to?
Yeah, I've noticed.
There we go.
All of our internet here today is a little slow, so hopefully
got to get all the buttons in the right order here as well.
On you. Most of you know how to get on a go-to meeting anymore, but every once in a while somebody has their telephone button clicked instead of their mic and speakers or vice versa, so you can't hear us. If you want to minimize the console so you can see the entire screen, hit the orange arrow. And could everybody hit the raise your hand button just so that we can see if you can hear us? There we go. There's several of them lighting up there. Thank you very much. Most important, if you do have questions, please type them in the question box and we'll try and get them answered as closely as in context as we can. So let's see. We have several more webinars coming up and a number of other things. You can click on CAD1.com events and see what else is coming up. I do want to note a couple things, Michael, if I might. Our annual Customer Appreciation Day will be scheduled for June 27th. We'll have our registration page available probably later this week or the first of next week. We've got a real interesting lineup of speakers coming in this year, so stay tuned for more details on that. Of course, that's always free, and we provide a nice lunch and so forth, so hope many of you will be able to join us for that. And what else have you got? Any other promotional slides or anything, Michael?
Nope, not this time around.
I do want to remind some folks that of a couple things. Autodesk has been running their first quarter promotion, which is centered around upgrades of older software, 2009 and above. If you upgrade your software, you can qualify for a year's free subscription with that upgrade. That's a good thing. Many of you may know, but some of you may not, and we're trying to make sure everybody knows so you don't get caught in this in a way you don't want to anyway. Autodesk will not be doing any more upgrades of software after February 1st of next year, or actually January 31st of next year, 2015. So please, 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 if you have older software, make some arrangements, give us a call, make some arrangements to get that upgraded so that you aren't having to buy a brand new version the next time you want to get current. So with that, let's see if there's anything else we need to mention in the housekeeping arena. I don't think so, Michael. I'm going to turn it over to you and let you go ahead and get started. Speaking
of software upgrades, I'm using today AutoCAD 2015.
Holy cow!
So, yeah, I haven't. We've had it available here to us for a little while. I've been playing around with it, and I haven't had a chance to really show off any of the stuff and get in there and play around. So I am working with 2015 today, and probably a lot of you longtime users are going to notice looks quite a bit different. They've gone with a darker theme now, so there's some pretty cool stuff. You'll notice the status bar down here at the bottom has the icons have shifted and changed a little bit. There's some nice features, I think. I personally like it. You'll see some other cool stuff as I'm working in here. As I start to highlight stuff, everything glows instead of showing the dashed and bold and all that kind of stuff. So there's some interesting stuff. Probably at some point, well, I don't know, here we didn't do a round of what's new demos like we have in the past, but
we'll be doing those. Our technical team is going to the technical boot camp in the middle of May, and rather than just read off a bunch of PowerPoints, which is all we really have available at this point, we thought we'd wait until after the technical boot camp and do the What's New presentations at at that time. I do want to let everybody know, Michael, since you're using the 2015, Autodesk has had an electronic download only policy for the software for a couple, 3 years now. You can get physical shipments, a thumb drive or a disk or whatever, but you have to go into your subscription center location on the Autodesk site and request that physical shipment. If you need more information, you can give us a call here at the office.
All right, so the plan for today, I want to talk about dynamic blocks. We've had some requests actually over the last couple of years. You know, we're always asking for requests for future webinars, and dynamic blocks was one of them that had come up a few times. You know, in the context of an hour-long webinar, it's hard to really dive deep on everything that a dynamic block is capable of. So my plan for today was really to start out at least looking at what are dynamic blocks, to show you some of the sample dynamic blocks that come with AutoCAD. Many of you have probably seen these. Many of you are using some of these. But I just want to talk about some of the functionality, some of the different functions that can be built into a dynamic block, so that you at least, those of you who haven't used them before, know what they are capable of doing. And then also to then get in, I'm going to show you how to create a couple simple dynamic blocks. We're going to talk about some visibility states. So maybe you have sort of a simple group of blocks. You have a dozen blocks or half dozen blocks that represent different kinds of objects. Rather than making them as individual separate blocks that I have to maintain on a tool palette or go insert individually, I can turn those into a dynamic block with visibility states and turn on and off each of the different shapes essentially that I want to view. So we're going to look at how to make a simple block like that using visibility states. I'm going to show you a couple of the actions, the parameters and actions that we can build in, like creating a stretch and an array action, maybe a flip or a rotate depending on how things proceed, how time looks. And I also want to look at a little bit more complex type of block that uses a block table in which I can select from a list of options and have AutoCAD automatically flex the shape of the block for me. So the whole purpose of a dynamic block really is to reduce just the number of overall blocks that have to be maintained. This is a common frustration. When you're working at AutoCAD, a lot of people will run into this, that they have lots of blocks. They're authoring lots of blocks. They have a one-off situation, or they have, well, as an example, they have maybe a vehicle block that, you know, sometimes they want to look like it's view it in profile, sometimes they want to view it in plan, sometimes they want to view it from the front, or perhaps a toilet. You know, things like this where you actually might need to maintain 6, 8, 10 separate blocks just to show an object or a couple objects in different views. We can now combine those into a single block. We can also make blocks which are more dynamic in that they're stretchable and we can change their size. Again, reducing the overall number of blocks that have to be maintained and found and categorized and put into a library. So let's take a look at first some of these sample blocks. I've opened up the standard, the out-of-the-box AutoCAD tool palettes over here. And we see that there are several blocks listed here. I've clicked on the Architecture tab, and we see listed here a series of blocks. Now these blocks I can tell are dynamic because they show this little lightning bolt. Wherever you see the lightning bolt in AutoCAD, essentially that represents some kind of advanced functionality and or automatic function. So you're going to notice that when you're dealing with annotative scales. You're going to notice that when you're dealing with, if you ever use Quick Select, the icon up here has a lightning bolt. So that indicates some sort of advanced function there. So I'm going to click this first one, Door Imperial, and just place that into my drawing, and then select it. And we'll see that unlike your average, just I call them static block, this block, this dynamic block, has a series of grips, not just a little blue square, but it has a lot of other grips. This door happens to have a couple flip grips. These little shapes right here, these little arrows represent flip grips or flip actions. So when I click on those, we'll see that I can flip and mirror the door just with a single click. I don't have to use my rotate and mirror commands just to change this door from left to right and from in to out. I'll also see that there's a couple of these arrow shape grips here, or kind of triangle shape. These are stretch actions or stretch grips. When I select this one to the right out here at the jamb, I'll see I can stretch the size of this door. This particular action happens to be incremented. So somebody's already pre-assigned a series of sizes, a set of sizes here, so that when I stretch this door, I can pick from a catalog. I don't have to guess as to what an appropriate size for the door is. So if you have a standard catalog of part sizes, you can increment that. You can build that in either as a set increment, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or we can build a table that says, well, in this case, you see we have 2 foot, 2, 4, all the way up to 3, 4, but it skips. See, there's a couple gaps in the little hash marks. So those are standard door sizes. That way I don't accidentally create a custom door size, which would have to be custom ordered. There's another stretch grip here for the jambs. It's the same way. This one has been incremented. You can also set minimums and maximums. So this one has been set at a minimum of 4 inches, a maximum of 6 inches with a 1-inch increment. So you can actually set your limits for your stretch grips and stretch actions. This one also has then a little table, a list grip. When I select that list grip, what I get is a list of, in this case, opening angles. And so I can set here, I can choose the angle at which this door is shown open. Here I can set it all the way. They've built this one all the way down so I can show it from closed up to 90 degrees. That happens to be, in this case, it happens to be a visibility parameter. When you select a certain size, it says then show us the door, or a certain angle, it says show us the door that looks like it's open 60 degrees. Let me grab the toilet block over here and place this one into my drawing. We see that in elevation, or at least when you place it, it comes in elevation. And I can click a little flip grip, it just moves the handle. This one also has a lookup table, or a visibility table is really what this is. And I can look at the plan view instead. Now when I switch to the plan view, a couple more grips appear.
Michael Paul asked a quick question,
Sure.
or not a quick question, but a comment. Could you mention if any of these features are exclusive to 2015, and if they are, let us know. Otherwise,
Sure. Yeah. Great comment. Great question. Everything I'll be showing today is not exclusive to 2015. Everything is available from I should know. I forget exactly what version Dynamic Blocks were introduced, but it's been a while.
Yeah, I'm thinking at least 2010.
Yeah. Constraints were introduced in 2010. I think Dynamic Blocks
2011
was probably around the same time. So some of the stuff required that. So nothing I will show today is exclusive to 2015. So this toilet and plan also shows a couple new grips that we haven't seen yet. There's one here called an alignment. This little, I don't know, it kind of looks, in this shape, it looks like a little house icon or something like that. The alignment grip there allows me to select this block and then use that grip. I can actually use that grip to move the block. Now, with that alignment grip selected, when I bring this toilet near a diagonal surface or diagonal line, AutoCAD is going to automatically align this shape to the diagonal line. If I approach it from the bottom, you see it aligns to the bottom side. If I approach the line from the other side, it will rotate it the other direction. So it's got a little bit of intelligence to it here, depending which side you approach the line from. Now, you might also, on occasion, need to just simply rotate that object rather than trying to align it to something. This one also has a rotate grip built into it. That little circle grip right here allows me to rotate this toilet around an established center point, in this case the middle of the back, but we can decide that as we establish those. This one is not incremented. It allows me to rotate to any angle. I can type in any angle I want here. But I can also set that to be an incremented rotation angle. So did I set up I believe I set up a little example block I was going to break out for you. So when I choose this rotation angle, you see I set this to rotate to 30-degree increments. So when I rotate this triangle, it'll snap to 30-degree increments. So I don't have to, again, type the angle every single time, and I don't have to, I can prevent people from accidentally rotating that to an odd angle that doesn't apply to this project. Let's see, a vehicle here is another interesting one that's got a, this is a good example of where I have combined, or actually AutoCAD has combined lots and lots of blocks into one single block, where in the past this would have been maintained, when I click the list here, this would have been maintained as, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 12 separate blocks that we would have to either have a catalog for, have a tool palette, or have them stored out on the network. This shows we've combined them into a single block, so we can just click one of these visibility parameters and we can view different types of scale vehicles, and we can view them in different orientations. So we've combined all of that together. Let's see, there's a few others. It's worth taking a look on these other tabs when you're working in AutoCAD, just to get some idea of what might be available and what kind of objects you might be able to build for your uses. Here's an anchor bolt, and I see that it has stretch grips, and again, it has been pre-incremented up to 5 inches for the leg here, and then I can grab this stretch grip, and it's been pre-incremented as well to your standard off-the-shelf sizes. That way somebody doesn't go and specify a non-standard shape or object, which then has to be custom fabricated or ordered or something like that. So they've actually built that into this one, the different out-of-the-box or standard sizes, off-the-shelf sizes. So those are some of the examples of the kinds of actions, the kind of parameters and actions that can be built into a dynamic block.
Jennifer asked, could you point out where those samples are again, please?
Sure, yeah. So this is the standard AutoCAD tool palette. One way to it, I'll show you the 2 ways to access it, 2 of the ways. On the View tab, if you're using the ribbon, we'll see that there is, well, let me double check here. Should have checked this before I'm new to 2015 here. There should be a tool palettes button in here. Oh, there it is right there. Just things are slightly different than they used to be from 2014. So on the View tab, there is a tool palettes button. The alias, the shortcut is just TP for tool palettes. That's how I usually launch the tool palette to open it up.
Seems appropriate since we're demonstrating
TP.
Toilets here.
Perfect. Exactly. Yeah, so you can open up the palettes, and what you'll find there are your sample, I call them sample dynamic blocks. It's really not intended to be a comprehensive palette of blocks for all purposes. I think it's just there more to show, hey, depending on, no matter what your discipline is, what you work in, you'll find examples of things that you might be able to create. I'm going to grab one more here and show, I'm going to create a, this one is called Stud Imperial. It's intended to look like a 2x. And I'll show you just one more thing, because I'm going to show you how to do this here just in a second. So this particular stud, or this Stud Imperial block, you see has, again, 2 of these triangle-shaped grips, which are stretch grips. It also has a couple of these lists here built into this. And when I grab these grips, they do different things. If I grab the one in the lower right, this one actually has an array parameter built into it. So rather than stretching the block, what I can do when I grab this one is actually add additional copies of that block in an array. This one again is set to it's set to an increment of the same width as the block itself, and then it's set to max out at 4 copies. But this one up here is just a regular stretch grip that we've seen. So I can actually stretch this out to from a 2x4 up to a 2x12. And then they went ahead and built some lists here, so I can actually pick from a list. Well, maybe I wanted 2x8s, and then I can pick here from this list for a quantity for that array. I can say, well, let's just show 2 of them. So maybe I just want to specify rather than doing it graphically on screen. Now the great thing about these dynamic blocks, and I tend to sometimes forget to show this, is that not only can you adjust them, but each instance of that block now can have its own properties assigned to it. So I can grab the exact same block. These are both the same block, but they have different values set to the different parameters that have been assigned. I can do that here with the toilet. I can grab the toilet and copy it, and I can say, well, let's just show this one. Oh, I always forget to show this here. Let's actually place one more in here. And I'll see they show us, they actually, just for fun, give us a pull chain toilet. But I can actually have each instance of a block in a different orientation with different values assigned to all of the different properties and parameters. So again, it keeps me from having to maintain dozens of individual blocks, I can put everything together into one single block called toilet.
Michael, Ron, a related question. Can you
Mm-hmm.
make a tool palette, can you make a new tool palette or just new tabs within the AutoCAD tool palette?
That is a good question. I've never actually considered that. I only ever add palettes, add tabs to this AutoCAD tool palette. I believe through the CUI, you should be able to create a new customized palette, but I can't swear to that. It's actually something I've never even
All I can
never thought
remember
about
is
doing
people creating new tabs, but then
Yeah.
I don't teach, so I don't get as involved as you do.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that involved into it to see if I can make a custom separate palette.
Jennifer comments that they create their own, so that's and creates the entire thing. So yes, you apparently can. Sounds like a good topic for a future webinar.
Yeah, we'll put that on the list. All right, so that's some basics of how some of these dynamic blocks work. And it's again, I'll just suggest you kind of go through and just click on a few of these, place them into the project, and just select it. See what kind of grips pop up and how they behave. So let's take a look. Let's get into then the process of creating dynamic blocks. We're going to start with some basics here. And actually, maybe what I'll do first is I'm going to select one of these blocks. I'm going to go here to that anchor bolt. I'm going to select this anchor bolt, and I'm going to go into the block editor just to show you some of the information or some of the stuff that's been built in here. And you see that these dynamic blocks can get extremely complicated. They will get extremely complicated when you get into things like even the W section that's here on the structural tab. There's a W steel beam which has a lot of information built into it. We're not going to get quite to this level of building, stacking these parameters on top of each other and all these actions and stuff, but you start to see we have to basically draw the individual line work, and then what we're going to do is assign things like these parameters, and then we're going to assign actions. That's what these represent. We're going to assign actions to these parameters, like when I stretch one of these grips, do I want the object to be stretched, or do I want it to be arrayed, or do I want it to be copied in some way, like in array fashion? Then that's what we'll do. Or do I want to just move the object or rotate it? We're going to add these actions. Let's take a look at that. Let me clean up my drawing a little bit here.
While you're cleaning up the drawing, James does mention that by right-clicking on the tool palettes, you can, and then going to customize, you can then, that will lead to the areas where you can create a new tool palette. So that's right-clicking on the tool palettes and then hitting customize. So there's that. And we have another couple questions, Michael, I'll get to when you're ready.
Okay.
Jay asks, when I type TP, I get the civil rather than the AutoCAD tool palettes. How do I get to the AutoCAD tool palettes? I assume you're probably in Civil 3D.
Yeah, I not actually. I don't know. I don't know that Civil 3D has the same AutoCAD tool palette built into it. I don't personally work with Civil 3D, so we'd have to take a look at that and see what is included in there, and if sometimes they're still hiding in the other tool palettes. I think in AutoCAD Architecture, what you had to do is right-click. I might be wrong about this. You might be able to right-click here down at the bottom of the tabs list, and there'll be separate tabs listed here, and then you can select individual tabs, and there might be even palette groups built into there and things like that. So we'd have to take a look a little bit to see how they're in there.
Jay, yeah, I'll post that to Brian Haley, our civil instructor, and see if he can pinpoint that for you. Trudy asks, do the dynamic blocks show property in other 3D views or other than the view in which they are placed?
Let's see, I've looked at a little bit. Dynamic blocks in 3D are a little bit different. I don't know. I've not actually worked with the dynamic blocks in 3D. I should say I've only worked with them very quickly just to kind of see what I was capable of doing, and I honestly, off the top of my head, don't know how the dynamic blocks will work in a 3D environment. If there's a little time at the end, I'll see if I can quickly throw together example of a maybe like visibility states kind of thing where we can change. I don't believe you can actually assign dynamic stretching and things like that in 3D, however. But again, I'd have to take a look at that a little more in depth to figure out. I should say last time I looked into it, which was been a couple years, I guess at that point I was not able to create dynamic functionality, but it could have just been my limitation of my knowledge in that case. But we can see if there's time to experiment with that. But I wanted to show you, so I'm going to start just by very simply creating a box here that has some dynamic qualities to it. So I'm just going to go quickly through the process of creating a block. I'm just going to go ahead and assign, I'm just going to create a rectangle. I'll go ahead and make a, I'm sure I've spelled that completely wrong. We'll just call that RECT. I'm going to pick a base point, select the objects, and hit OK. So I'm going to go into the block editor, and now I have a block. It's just in this case, it's just a polyline. It could be even just a series of lines. And typically what I'm going to do, and this is one of the things I've been struggling with, how much to discuss regarding constraints. For the time being, I've decided I'm just going to kind of show more of a demonstration of what we need to do. I won't get too in-depth into what constraints do, but I'm going to grab this auto constraint button, which appears now in the block editor contextual tab, and select all this line work just to constrain everything. What that's going to do is basically lock in the relationships and the orientations of these lines. Right now I want to keep this as a rectangle when I dynamically change it, so I constrain it to be essentially a rectangle. Lines are horizontal and vertical, they are perpendicular to one another, they meet at their endpoints and will remain constrained at their endpoints, so I don't accidentally break one of these lines free from the others as I'm stretching it. So once I've constrained everything, what I need to do is add parameters. I'm going to build just a basic stretch parameter to start with. When you're in the block editor, let me reduce this, pull this out. When you're in the block editor, you're going to get this block authoring palette, which automatically appears in the block editor. You can close it, it'll come back time you open the block editor. We'll see that it's divided into tabs, parameters and actions, and parameter sets. Parameters tab here. What I have to do is assign a parameter, basically a property which is editable dynamically. So I'm going to start with first this linear. Use the linear tool, and when I start that, it's going to ask me to specify a point. So I need to actually pick, basically like drawing a dimension, the corners of my rectangle. I'm going to place this one horizontally, and when I place that, it places this blue distance parameter, and I see this little exclamation point that appears, and that just basically indicates to me that I haven't yet assigned any actions. If I were to close this block, nothing would happen when let me do this. Let me actually test the block. I can click the test block tool here, or button. It takes me into this special block testing environment. You see when I select my block, all I have is the base point grip. I still don't have anything dynamic about it because I haven't yet assigned an action. So let's close the test block here and go back in here. So what I need to do next is assign an action, some kind of a behavior which is assigned to this distance parameter. When I change the distance, I would like AutoCAD to do what? So I go to this Actions tab over here on the Block Authoring Tool Palette, and from here I'm going to select a stretch action. So when I choose the stretch action, it says, well, select a parameter to assign the action to. So I'm going to pick distance 1, and then I have to choose, well, where does this happen? Where's this action going to happen? I'm going to click over here at the right-hand corner, and it's going to then specify, it says specify first corner of stretch frame. This is basically the indicator, this box that I'm going to draw. It's not really the stretch itself, the stretch command. It's just going to be an indicator. When I highlight this action over here, it's going to show me where the action is taking place. Then I have to actually select the objects. I prefer to do this as an actual stretch window because it's what I'm used to for using the stretch command. It doesn't necessarily have to be this. I could pick directly on these objects, and only the parts inside the stretch frame would really be affected. So I'm done selecting objects. I'll hit enter, and now I'll see that this little action parameter has popped up. Let me actually hide my constraint, so it's a little easier to see the actions. So this symbol indicates that there is a stretch action assigned to my distance 1 parameter. So let me go over here and click test block again. Now in the block test environment, when I select that block, I now get my little stretch arrow that appears, stretch. So when I select that, you see now I can dynamically stretch my rectangle here, and I can type in, let's just say 12, and I can actually type in the distance. All right, so now I've got a stretch action happening. So let me click close test block. Takes me back into here, and there's a couple of things that now can be, we should at least investigate. This action, when I select it, I can go to the properties of that action itself, and we'll see that there are things like some overrides. There is a stretch here. There's a miscellaneous option, so there's an action there. I can actually change the name. And I can also select the parameter and have a look at the properties there. And we'll see that this parameter has a property for a heading for value set. And right now it says distance type of none. So if I wanted to, I could actually set my distance type here. This is where I mentioned earlier. You can assign increments or create a list of sizes or increments basically that you can set that distance to. So if I set the increment here, I can set a distance increment of, let's say, 2 inches. Let's go to a minimum of 12 inches and a maximum of 24.
That got a minimum of 1 inch there. Oh, 1 foot. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but so let's go test this one. So I click test block again. Now when I select it and grab my stretch, it's kind of hard to see on your view, I think. Well, it looks like it's right. So now you see those little hash marks indicating the various sizes. So it's maxing out at, there it is, at 2 feet. Come on, there we go. So I won't let me go past 2 feet, and as I move it, you see it's incrementing exactly to 1 inch, or did I say 2 inch? 2 inch increments here. All right, so that's working. So I click close test block again, and I can now say close block editor, save changes, and there's my little rectangle. I can select it, and now I can modify the size incrementally. I've predefined the size there. All right, so let me add one more type here. So I'm going to click on, select that, right-click, say block editor, whatever your preferred method to enter the block editor is. There's no special block editor just for dynamic blocks. So if you're used to editing standard blocks, you go into the exact same block editor for editing dynamic blocks. So let me add one more parameter here for a linear parameter here for the height. So I'm going to click across the corners, drag this out here. Now I'm going to assign an action to this vertical distance, or distance 2 parameter. I'm going to assign a array parameter here. So that's listed on the tab array. When I select that again, I have to pick which parameter is this being assigned to. So I'm going to pick distance 2. It says select the objects. So which objects are going to be arrayed? So I want to make sure to pick all the line work I want arrayed. So if I need, if this was a rectangle or something, I could do that. I could also add additional shapes. I'm just going with kind of a simple rectangle now. Okay, I'm done selecting objects. I hit enter. And it says enter the distance between columns. I'm going to select here the corner to corner here as my distance. And that's basically what it takes. I just set a distance. I could have typed in a known distance if I wanted that to array at exactly 6.5 inches, 3.5, 5, whatever. I can type in that distance. So let's go test that block. And we'll see now when I select this block, I get 2 more of these rectangular, or triangle-shaped arrows. And when I select now, we'll see as I drag that arrow out, AutoCAD is going to make an array of that block at whatever distance or whatever point that I select. And this one, because I didn't change it, the default, I can actually array it. Looks like I got a couple blocks stacked on top, a couple, oh boy. I think I might have confused AutoCAD there. I was trying to pick the array grip there to operate to run that in the opposite direction. Now you can set up these. Whoop, I think I managed to lock up AutoCAD. How about that? We'll give it a second to think. So you can actually determine how many grips are visible also on each of the actions. So I could have said, you know, just show me. Let's see what it does. Wow, I've really locked this one up.
So you might want to not install 2015 till
we're putting it through its paces.
The point release here.
Well, that's funny. I see stuff in my what kind of looks like maybe my display is what's locked up and not
the AutoCAD.
Not AutoCAD. I can't tell because I'm seeing stuff on the GoToMeeting pop up, but I'm not seeing it on my own screen. I'm also running a brand spanking new laptop, so I'm also putting this through its paces as well. All right, so this is going to be fun. Let's see if we can.
Russell and Kevin, I see your questions here, and we'll get them answered here.
Yeah, maybe we can address a couple questions while I try to. Let's see what I can do. Let's see. Go ahead, Stan, with some of the questions, and I'll see if I can get this read through.
Don't distract you there. Russell asks, I noticed that the dynamic 2x4 block are drawn to at actual size. Can they be changed to nominal size?
You can draw whatever size you need. So that 2x block that was listed, the 2x4 stud, I guess it was called stud imperial, that actually was set up to be, yeah, actual size, but then they listed nominal. So let me get AutoCAD running again real quick. So they actually have listed the 2x4s in the little lookup list. When you click that, it'll say 2x6, 2x8, 2x10. But if you check the actual dimensions of the block itself, you can, let me just pull it up here real quick.
Now we're back.
Yeah, we're back. So that's one great thing here about this new laptop. So let me grab this one here, Stud Imperial. We'll see that when I grab the stretch here, it's actually going to increment to real-world sizes of my stud. So in this case, the actual dimension. But if I click the list over here, they've actually just listed it because this isn't, these numbers here only represent a name, essentially, whatever we want to type. So they said 2x4, but when we actually select the 2x4, we'll see that the actual size is listed at 3.5 inches. So that's the actual dimensional lumber size. So the block and the line work itself is whatever you want it to be. Literally whatever you can draw, you can put into the block. And then it's a matter if you're putting increments or whatever, it's using either a predetermined increment or what they call a list and say, well, because 2x's don't go in a set order, they go in half-inch increments and then they drop another quarter off of that, they go 3/4 inch increments. So you might need to build a list instead of just a standard increment.
Then Kevin asks, you know, the parameter values, can they only be available after an action is assigned?
Yeah, so you have to assign, using the basic parameters in the block editor, you have to assign an action to them in order to have any kind of dynamic property. So the action is what you see happen on screen. The parameter defines what gets modified, I guess. So like the linear parameter says we're going to adjust a length type of property, and then the adjustment is the action. When we adjust that length, are we saying stretch the object or array the object or something like that? So yeah, you have to assign the action after you assign the parameter to be modified.
And then Chris asks, is there a way to count similar blocks that have different rotation properties from the dynamic rotation grips? B count and select similar don't seem to work if the rotation values are different.
Yeah, so the B count is kind of, I guess, more of a basic, how many blocks are there of this name? the parameters when you adjust. How about that? I also killed my ribbon. So let me get out of here. So these properties, if you have, that one I haven't set up yet. If I were to adjust something here, let's go to 12 by, let me pull up properties. So we'll see here, when I select this dynamic block, down here under the custom in your properties, all of the parameters that you create in your dynamic block will appear in here, and the value of that parameter will appear in the properties. What that means is that not using block count, but using something like data extraction. So if you're using full AutoCAD or Civil 3D or Map or something like that, you have data extraction. AutoCAD LT does not have this function in it, but you can use the data extraction tools. I believe we did a webinar on that maybe last year. You can actually extract this data and report it into a table or report it out into an Excel spreadsheet if you like. So yes, you can extract that data. If there's a rotation parameter and you have one set at 0 and one set at 45, or dozens of them set at various angles, you can extract that data into a table of some kind, but it does require a little bit advanced function beyond the block count tool, the B count command. All right, so I do want to show you quick the visibility parameter. It's amazing how quickly time goes by talking about this. There's a lot to talk about.
Hopefully that answered your question too, Chris.
Yeah.
The database.
So let me show you here. In this case, this is a good way to get into dynamic blocks. So this, remember I showed you this vehicle block from the AutoCAD tool palettes. When I select the list here, the list grip, I get a list of various displays of the block. And if I were to go into this block, I would see there aren't any dynamic properties. We're not stretching all the lines to look like a truck and stretching them to look like a car. We're actually just saying, show me this set of lines when I select option A, show me a completely different set of lines when I pick option B. So I've set up a block here really quickly just to jump ahead. I just drew a bunch of shapes, a bunch of polygons. And when we go into the block editor here, we'll see that I have a triangle, a circle, a pentagon, a hexagon. And I want to be able to select from a list which of these shapes displays at any moment, at any time, and in any location. So what I have to do first is come here to the Parameters tab, again, in the block editor, and we'll see that in the list there is a visibility parameter. So I'll have to assign a visibility parameter before my visibility states panel here becomes active. So let me click visibility. It's going to say specify the location. So where do you want that little list script to pop up? I'm going to click in the middle just so that it's, well, yeah, we'll just put it in the middle of this shape. Doesn't have to be. It can be literally anywhere you want to place it. Once I've placed the visibility parameter grip, the visibility panel becomes activated. And I'll see that already there's a visibility state here in this list called visibility state 0. I'm going to rename that in a moment. So what I need to do is first go here into this visibility states dialog. Click that button. And I'm going to assign some visibility states. So I'm going to grab the first visibility state 0, and I'm going to rename it first. We'll call this triangle. And then I'm going to click New. Now I'm going to start adding my own visibility states. So I'm going to create another one called circle. And once you create your new visibility states in this dialog, you have the choice of selecting how the objects which you have drawn are going to be included in this visibility states. So I'm going to say leave the visibility of existing objects unchanged. I'm just going to leave the default here, leave it unchanged, and hit OK. I'm going to click New again. We'll call this hex, and we'll click New one more time, and I'll call this pentagon. I think that covers them all. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I have all of my visibility states established. I'm going to hit OK. And we'll see that those will now be listed in this drop-down. And if I choose the different visibility states, at this point nothing happens because I haven't yet assigned what gets displayed in any one of these visibility states. So let's start with triangle. I'm going to switch this to triangle. And we have two buttons here. One is called Make Visible, and one is called Make Invisible here. These two squares with arrows on them. So what these are used for is to change the display in the current visibility state of any objects that are currently visible here. So I'm going to click Make Invisible, and I'm going to pick the circle, and then I'm going to pick the other two shapes because right now I'm in the triangle visibility state. That's the only one I want to appear. So I've selected the other three shapes. I hit Enter, and we'll see now they disappear from the triangle visibility state. If I click on Circle, everything appears because when I made the circle visibility state, I said just show everything. So let me switch to the circle visibility state, say Make Invisible. I'll pick the triangle and the other two shapes there as well and hit Enter. And you just go down the list. There's alternate ways of doing this, but this is sort of a step-by-step, makes it a little easier. So I'm going to pick Make Invisible again in the, there we go, in the hex, and that's the hexagon. So I'll make these two invisible, these other three. Oh, what happened? They're Make Invisible. The circle and the pentagon. There we go. And then finally I'll switch, what was the last one? Pentagon. I'll say Make Invisible. Triangle, circle, hexagon, Enter, and now all those disappear. So now as I switch among my different visibility states, we see only those objects appear. Now you could do this with blocks. If you already have a bunch of blocks that together represent a bunch of different plants, plant symbols, you could nest all of your blocks in here and then say, I will have my evergreen 1, and select that block and say only make that one visible, make the others invisible. You can make your visibility states and also insert them objects onto each of those visibility states, and that'll kind of assign it automatically. The blocks that you see in this AutoCAD tool palettes, a lot of those you might recognize as blocks that we used to have available in AutoCAD a long time ago, and they've just combined them. That's essentially what they did, is nested the blocks together, and the sample blocks have exploded all of the individual blocks, but you could nest them together. I don't really see any major issue with that. But anyway, let me go ahead and click Close Block Editor, say Save Changes, and now when I select my triangle or my block here, I'll see there's that little list grip. I put it in the middle. I could have put it off to one side, and now I can choose the different shapes from the list, and it will display. Whoop, did I not get it? There it is, pentagon. It will display each of the different shapes. So this could be as many individual objects as you like. You can also set up objects that should appear maybe in all situations. Maybe I'm just going to draw a circle down here. I've drawn this circle in the triangle visibility state. So that circle is assigned automatically to the triangle visibility state. If I switch to circle, you see it disappears. What I can do is actually in those individual states, let's switch to, I say let's go to circle, and that little circle at the bottom, maybe it's a piece of text, let's say, that labels the block. If I want that object to appear in all states, I can go to each of these states. I'm going to click this other button that says Visibility Mode. When I turn that on, what it does is show all of the other shapes that are meant to appear in other visibility states. So I can now pick the circle, or I can actually say Make Visible, click the circle, hit Enter, and now the small circle will also be visible in this state. When I switch to that hexagon, again I can say Make Visible, select the circle, add it to that visibility state, and let's just see what we have here. So save the changes there. Now, when I click from the list, I'll see the triangle will show the extra little circle. So will the circle visibility state. But these other two, oh, I guess I did go ahead and set them up to show that. There, I guess that's the one. I didn't show it. So you can kind of mix and match the objects. So you don't have to recreate the same object in multiple visibility states. So you don't have lots of duplicate information there.
We got a little stack of questions here.
Okay, let's take a look.
So Jennifer, first I'll get to Jennifer's comment here. You can also use these blocks to hide objects behind them using draw, order, and hatching in the block instead of cut and trim. So that's a good comment, Jennifer. Appreciate that. And Chris asks, can we make dynamic blocks pull equipment information from a database? He wanted to push information to the database earlier, and now we're going back and pulling stuff from.
Let's see, you can include attributes in your dynamic blocks, and they would behave like other geometry in the dynamic block that you could set them up to display. However, I don't believe there's any method by which you could pull data. I guess I'd need a little bit more information to know exactly what the desired goal is, but there's not really a way to push data, not in basic AutoCAD anyway. There could be perhaps in like map and things like that have a lot more advanced information management tools. In basic AutoCAD, the attributes are pretty much push only, or well, they can read data and report data if you use fields and things like that. But as far as I know, there's not a method to actually have it pull from some other database. It's just your basic dynamic blocks in basic AutoCAD.
Yeah, that's always a little bit of a issue with plain vanilla AutoCAD, whereas, as Michael mentions, Map or Revit or Civil 3D or Inventor or some of those have a little bit more capability for data linking bidirectionally. We've got questions coming out the wazoo here, which is good.
Yep, we saw those lots of interest. We had a really large, a lot of people responded, so we're happy to answer questions. And maybe what we'll do is we'll do I guess a follow-up on dynamic blocks to get a lot more in depth with individual pieces. But I should point out, Stan, we talk about this a lot, that we forget to mention this in our webinars, though. Remember that we offer classes. I know a lot of you are tuning in from around the world, but we do offer classes here. We get into dynamic blocks in our AutoCAD Advanced class.
Right.
We spend several hours getting into actually authoring dynamic blocks with array parameters and stretch parameters. We make a bookcase that has a lookup table so you can actually change the size from a list of predetermined sizes. So those of you who are local to the Denver area, give us a call. We're also trying to work out a way to provide more long-distance education too.
Yes,
so
we will have our
keep you up to date on that.
Exactly, our distance learning, what we're calling at your desk learning, our regular classes, but anyone anywhere can log into them and take one of our classes that way, and that will probably be up and available within the next 3 to 4 weeks here. So we're looking forward to that. Brad says the Imperial stud blocks seem to have both selectable visibility states and a list type stretch action. How can you make both of those work together in that way?
It was actually the Imperial stud block actually has an array parameter and a stretch parameter built into it. So this one doesn't actually have. What they've done is built a table, and I'm trying to find it here because this one was part of the action display lookup table. There we go. So what they've actually done is create a lookup table that says, you see stud width and stud count. Basically, they just have made a list of predetermined increments for the stretch along the horizontal or the array action, and then they've created a separate set for the actual stud height. They've created a list of sizes that can be assigned to that parameter. You can, though, include different kinds of parameters inside different visibility states. That is actually more, that's what happens when you look at did I already erase the toilet? I think it crashed before I saved. So that's actually what happens when you select the toilet and switch here. This is a visibility state parameter. So I'm going to switch to elongated plan, and you see that the action parameter for the rotate, that's actually part of the visibility states. So you can actually take these actions, parameters and actions which are assigned to your block, and nest them into the different visibility states, because when I choose the toilet in plan, I want to be able to rotate it. When I view it in elevation, though, I don't need to rotate that. I just need to say, show me the front or show me the side. I don't care about rotating it to some other angle. So these actual actions are built into the various visibility states. So let me turn that off. So we see here when I switch in this visibility state to round plan, that my rotate parameter appears inside of that block. So it's just a matter of remembering, as you're assigning these visibility states, and it says select objects, or you have the option to select objects, that you also get the parameters themselves included in that visibility state.
All right, Tammy asks, can you go over blocks with text?
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. For the most part, text is in a block is pretty much the same as text. If we're talking about multi-line text, it's pretty much the same in the block as it is outside the block. If you wanted to include text which is editable, you get into something called attributes. And unfortunately, we don't really have time in this context. We're already running out of time here to create attributes. I'll just show you in the block editor. I'll just kind of point you in the right direction here. And I'm trying to remember if we've done an attributes. I think I did an attributes webinar.
I do remember that. It's probably in our archives on our website.
Basically here inside the block editor you'll find a, why am I not seeing it? I might have to actually do I have to go to the insert? Yeah, I think I have to define attributes here inside the block. So the text, editable text inside of a block is called an attribute. So that basically that's the term that you want to investigate if you're just kind of new to authoring blocks and authoring blocks with editable and dynamic text. I did want to show one more thing real quick. Just here's another example block I created. So here's an example of a block which has predefined overall sizes. Just to show you one more step of an advanced block, which is still very simplistic here in this case. I'll show you inside my block editor. Here what I've assigned is something called dimensional parameters. Rather than just these action parameters over here, I've gone up and used the dimensional constraints, actually is what they're called here, and I've assigned a width and a height here as well. And then what I created was a table. You see here what I can do is create, inside my parameters manager, I can actually assign names. So there's a parameters manager. I assigned my width and height names and values. And then I created something called a block table, which says take the parameters of size and width, and I built a table of sizes. So if you have a block that, again, maybe it's more complex than just horizontal and vertical dimensions, you know, maybe you don't want, again, the user to be able to choose from a list. You can also assign these block tables which say select the size called 12 by 4, assign a width of 1 foot, assign a height of 4 inches. So you can go here and just keep adding in your different sizes. Maybe just say 20 by 6, and then assign here values to this. So that might be, this was a subject. I wanted to introduce it real quick, and I was assuming probably on this one we were going to have to come back and maybe do a webinar here in the future. Oop, not that discard save. So now you'll see basically I built a list of sizes here. So this is actually, in this case, rather than a visibility which says show me a rectangle of each of the different sizes or different shapes, I'm actually stretching, I'm morphing the size of this object by just selecting from a list of options and then tweak the geometry. And I could assign that to objects inside that block as I want again. So I just wanted to show that that's possible. I was hoping I'd have time to get into that one, but dynamic blocks are really, like I mentioned, a very very complex subject, and in the course of an hour it's hard to kind of discuss all of the features, but hopefully I at least give some ideas of how the authoring works, where to look, how to apply a few of those, and hopefully in the future we'll get to do a little bit more in depth on a specific topic inside of the dynamic blocks. But
well, Michael, we're at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
What I'm going to say is, do you have a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
All right. We have 5 or 6 more questions. I'm not going to, please don't take any more questions, but we have 5 or 6 more, and we're going to try and answer those. If you want to hang around and watch, we will do that, and if you've got to leave, we understand. Now, I'm going to say something here that we do record these webinars, and this will be on our on our YouTube channel in the next few days. I want to say something here, though. This will be Michael's last webinar with us. In the little over 2 years that Michael has been with us, he has been Instructor of the Year for North America and one of the top 5 instructors in North America this year. Excellent instructor, excellent architect. and he is going to open the Chicago office for Bluebeam. Wonderful product, and we're going to miss Michael very, very much, but at the same time, we couldn't be luckier to have had him here with us for a couple years. So Michael, good luck in that, and I'm also going to put in a little plug. We are going to get another AutoCAD and Revit instructor, hopefully an architect, or and the more Autodesk products you know well, more qualified you will be. So I'll leave it at that.
info@CAD-1.com
Yes.
if you'd like to contact Stan about that,
Yes.
that opportunity. So, all right,
so listen, let's go through.
Yep, let's take a look at a couple questions.
Okay, we're going to go through these last few questions, and so Joe's question: will you please review all the grips and flips on the dynamic blocks? I got a little confused on what they all do based on how they look.
Sure. So let me put up. I'm using the Door Imperial again because it has. That's a good one with flip grip. So if it's an arrow shape, if the grip is an arrow shape like this, that's a flip grip. That will just completely, basically, I'll call it mirror. It's going to mirror the object. We call that a flip grip, or some people might just say a mirror grip. These triangle or more arrowhead shaped, these grips are stretch grips. When you select those are going to change the size of the object, either change the size of the object, or in some cases, those will act as an action. So that's how when I select this one, if I go with this one up here, that one has been assigned to change the size of the object. This one has been assigned an action to modify the count, basically to array the object. So these triangle-shaped grips are called stretch grips. If I were to select my toilet block here, the circle grip like this is going to be a rotate. So when I click that grip, it's going to allow me to rotate that block. This one here, sort of a, I don't know, band shape, you might call it. This one is an alignment grip. I select that, allow me to align that block to other shapes. It's kind of cool because actually, if it's set up, I forget exactly how this one's set up. If I click and hold, or click and release, and then use that to move my toilet here, you'll see it's set up to be, in this case, tangential, essentially. So depending what side I approach the circle from, I can actually align this tangential to one of the to the circle, to some other shape. So that's an alignment grip built into there. There are a few others built in there. Let me. I had a list here somewhere. Now I can't quite place where it's been located. All right. So let's the last one. Then these are the. Then you have your list grips. So that is this triangle shape, this downward pointing triangle grip with a little bar over the top. That's a list grip. When you select that, you're going to get different lists of visibility or different sizes depending on how that particular block has been defined. You're going to get different kinds of information listed in that. All right, and I think that covered all of the grip types that will be found in a dynamic block.
All right, so Joe, hopefully that gets your question. Mike has a kind of a dual question here. Does the AutoCAD file store all of the states of the blocks in the file? And then he comments that could make the file pretty large.
Good point. So yes, when you load in the car, as just again as an example, and I click the list, I see there are 12 different visibility states, and AutoCAD does store all 12 of those states. You know, it has to store all the line work. Now, if that is very complex geometry, then you're absolutely right. That could tend to start bloating your file size if you have lots of dynamic blocks with lots of different states built into them. So thank you for mentioning that. That probably is a consideration when you're starting to make these dynamic blocks. How heavy is that block going to get? It's probably worth, basically what you need to do, I guess, is add up the size of the individual blocks, and that is the end result of the dynamic block. Now, that is with the visibility states. These states, these guys here, like the one of the mechanical pieces. Let's grab the structural. Let me grab this W section here and place it. In this case, when I pick here from this list for this W section, that appears to be like a lot of information, all these different W section sizes, and that's not even an entire list. That seems like that could get really heavy, but in this case, what they've done to make this block more lightweight is that when I select a different size from the list, the dynamic block is actually stretching all of the line work. So these are all the exact same line. The top of this flange up here is the exact same line when I pick all my different sizes here. So that is actually a pretty lightweight block. There's just a series of lines, then with a bunch of parameters, we'll see here, assigned for the radiuses, the radii, for the depth of the flange, the thickness of the webbing, all those kind of things. So it's not always necessarily going to mean that your block is going to be very heavy and going to bloat your file size. The actual contents, how you build the block, I guess will depend on the functionality you need and the actual contents you need to place into that block.
Okay, Michael, Daniel asks, is there a way to rotate a block with a text attribute so that the position of the text rotates as the block rotates, but the text remains in the same orientation so that it can be read normally?
I believe you can do that. I think it'll be specific to, well, it'll be caused by a couple different things. I'd have to try it, but when you place your rotate parameter, what you need to do is to include in the selection set, it's called, for that rotate parameter. It'll ask you which objects do you want to rotate with this action. You pick the objects, the line work, you also pick the text. What I'm not positive of is if you have your the text settings. I don't know how mirror text is going to apply to that. Well, I guess this is rotate, not mirror. So I guess I'd have to take a look at how that functions. I'd say give it a try with your rotate parameter. Do I have one here? I could quickly try something, but it would take a little experimentation. I've not actually tried that myself. My hunch, I'll say, is yes, that you can actually make that happen, but probably what I would need to do is also assign like a constraint to the text.
Yeah. Is
most likely what I have to do, or perhaps constrain the text to something in the drawing, like a line, which is then constrained to be horizontal. I believe I helped. Many of you know who Brian Haley is here, our Civil 3D expert. He was actually working on a dynamic block for some parts, for
civil parts.
Yeah, civil parts, and that's what he had done. I believe was lock the text to a line and then constrain the line to be horizontal, and then he was able to move the line around dynamically, rotate it, but the text was locked to be horizontal. So I'll say it takes a little trickery, perhaps you might say. You kind of have to experiment with some of those features.
And the last question we have, again, this will be recorded and on our YouTube channel, and you can find that on our archives page on our regular website, or you can go to the CAD-1 YouTube channel and find this. It'll probably be posted in the next week or so. Jesse asks, dynamic blocks to be shared between Arc Civil always have scale issues of a factor of 12. It appears your blocks are all in units of inches, probably for architecture. Would the solution to this be to build blocks unitless?
I believe if you're going between, yes, I think if you make them unitless, it's been a while since I've actually tested that, but if you make them unitless, as you're inserting them into the drawing, if your insertion scale of that file is set properly, then the blocks should take on the destination units. I can't say that that's always going to be the case. I've run into the same issues myself where I pull blocks in and they come in 12 times too large or 12 times too small. I believe even if you assign units, though, they should appear correct. Let me check something. This is, I believe, this is a architectural units. You know, I will freely admit that units is still one of the places that in all my years of using AutoCAD, I still have to stop and scratch my head a little bit and give some thought to exactly what is it that's occurring here. Yeah, so in this case, this one came in 12 times too large. The block is probably was created in inches. If I'd made it unitless, it should take on the insertion scale, insertion units for that particular drawing. But again, I'd have to experiment a little again with the different blocks and different dynamic traits. I don't know how the dynamic properties will be converted over to other unit sizes. If it automatically does the math for the increments, or if we're going to end up with sort of a mixed unit situation again, and we have to scale everything manually by that factor of 12 to make it work. In this case, it didn't. It's actually, just bringing through the same inches, just unitless inches now is what's happening.
Jesse, if you want to give us a call down here, we can maybe hook you up with somebody who can go over that a little more fully. Or it's about time for us to come up and visit you anyway soon. So anyway, folks, that's all the questions we have for today, and we thank you for going a little bit long, those of you who stayed. Hope this was a benefit to you. And Michael, we wish you well in the future. Much. I know we'll be seeing you again, but
thanks
we wish
everybody.
You well.
Thanks everybody who's been attending the webinars for a couple of years here. I really appreciate that people want to sit and listen to me talk for that length of time every month.
Well, anyway, we'll be talking to you soon, and watch for our upcoming webinars. Thanks very much, folks.